With New York Giants cornerback Adoree Jackson back, what can we realistically expect his role to be in this weekend's regular season opener against the Minnesota Vikings? We're going to talk about that and more coming your way next on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
This episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find my written work, New York Giants on SI.com. And as always, welcome on into my Blue Crew community members, my everydayers, my newcomers, and everybody in between. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And if you are watching on YouTube and you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to the channel. And don't forget to click the little bell so that you are notified every time I post a new video. I post shorts as well as these full-length videos. So this way you will never miss a notification when I post. And if you wouldn't mind, like the video. That helps as well. And for those of you who listen to me on our audio platforms, if you wouldn't mind giving a 5-star review of the podcast, that is appreciated as well. I really try my best to give you guys a variety of different topics and guests and perspectives and all kinds of stuff. So hopefully, your feedback is positive. And if there's something particular you want to see, it is appreciated. So thank you. All right, on today's Locked On Giants podcast, Adoree Jackson spoke to the media on a Monday via video conference call, and I want to explore the realistic expectations for Adoree. I know when head coach Brian Daboll, who also spoke on the conference call, mentioned that there was a possibility that he might have Adoree return punts. I know that got a lot of people up in arms because Adoree, if you remember correctly, back in 2022, got injured on a punt return, missed I think something like 8 games, I want to say, but was back for the playoffs that year. So I'm going to tell you what I think is going to happen and just kind of, hash it out a little bit based on what Adoree had to say and what I know to be true. Then in segments 2 and 3, we're going to take a look at the Giants 53-man roster. Now, I believe the 53-man roster, which underwent some tweaks from what we looked at last week. I think it's set now for the upcoming game against the Minnesota Vikings, the season opener. And I just want to look at offense and defense. Where are the strengths? Where are the weaknesses? We won't necessarily go through position by position, but we'll look at the strengths, the weaknesses, the question marks, and all that stuff, and maybe talk a little bit about how the Giants might disguise some of the weaknesses and, play up some of the strengths. So that's our agenda for today. Again, welcome on into everybody. All right, let's talk Adoree Jackson. Now, it's great to see Adoree back. Adoree's always been one of my my favorites in recent years. Really good guy. And he was on the conference call with the media today. And the question came up regarding how much could he realistically give the team this weekend against the Minnesota Vikings. And, the question was put to Adoree. It was also put to Brian Daboll. Daboll was also asked, is it possible that Adoree is going to return punts? And he didn't rule it out, which I'm not surprised that he didn't rule it out because Daboll likes to keep people guessing. That's just what he does. So anyway, his comment about it possibly being true, I think had a lot of people up in arms because they're like, why would you do that? He got hurt the first time, the last time you had him return punts. Why would you tempt fate like that again? All right, folks, this is what I think is going to happen. And again, this is based on what I know. This is based on what Adoree had to say and just logic. All right. Before Adoree was signed, I think we can all agree that no matter what the Giants said, they were concerned about the depth at cornerback because they were basically one injury away from a catastrophe, right? Deontay Banks is set, but Nick McLeod and Cordell Flott, whom Dable said is now healthy, neither of them really stepped up and made the CB2 job their own. Then you have behind them Trey Hawkins and other young guys, and it's not a strong area. Spoiler alert, it's still not a strong area. So they bring in Adoree Jackson, and right away you can say that the position group is strengthened a little bit. So why would you take Adoree and have him return punts and risk him returning punts and, basically put yourself back in the same situation if, God forbid, he got injured that you were in before you signed him? It just doesn't make sense to me. Now, I say all this, and this is mentioned because Gunnar Olszewski, who is the punt returner, is dealing with a groin issue. And last time they practiced, or the media had access to practice, Gunnar Olszewski looked a little gimpy. Now, it's been a few days. It's possible that he's better. We won't know until, we get back on the field and see him on Tuesday, which is when we'll be back in the building. And then the injury report won't be out until Wednesday. That's when the first injury report has to be filed. So, I don't know who's going to end up returning punts if Olszewski can go, or can't go rather. Behind him, you've got Darius Slayton, you've got Wan'Dale Robinson, you've got Tyrone Tracy Jr. I'm not sure any of those guys are the best option in terms of value. I mean, you might make a case for Tracy, but I just don't know that I would go in that direction. Could the Giants maybe pull somebody up from the practice squad? It's a possibility. Could they put in somebody else that we're not thinking of? Sure, they could, but I don't want to see it be Adoree Jackson. I always say you don't want to coach scared, but you also want to coach smart. And I think it's a very fine line between, coaching smart and being, daring and coaching scared. So I don't think that the Giants are going to ask Adoree to return punts for them. I think worst case scenario, what happens there with punt return, you put Olszewski back there, you tell him just catch the ball, secure it, and we'll worry about, field possession another time. That's what I think makes sense. You could probably do the same thing with Adoree back there. Just say, hey, just catch it, and we'll worry about field position another day. But I think ideally that's what's going to happen. They may have to sacrifice the punt return if Olszewski is not 100%. All right. So that being said, what can we expect from Adoree Jackson? Well, he spoke about, the differences between being in shape and being in football shape. Two very different things. So Adoree, spent the off season working out, keeping himself, fit and ready to go. But it takes some time to get into football shape where you're bumping into guys, knocking around, getting hit, tackling, all that stuff. And that's stuff that you pick up during training camp and during the preseason, all of which Adoree hasn't had. So the Giants are going to ramp him up this week. And my best guess is that he's going to be put on a pitch count for Sunday. I don't think they'll leave him inactive. I think they will put him on a pitch count and rotate in there either Flott or McLeod. Probably Flott, I would think, will get rotated in there. And just give Adoree a chance to get his sea legs back underneath him. Because even Adoree said, look, if I have to go and play, 60 snaps, which is about what you would expect a defender who doesn't leave the field to play, I probably would get gassed. So he even acknowledged that he's got to be ramped up and get his sea legs back underneath him. So that's what I think is going to happen with Adoree Jackson. It's better than nothing. And I think also helping the Giants, or potentially helping the Giants, the Vikings only right now, at least based on what I know, only have the one healthy receiver, Justin Jefferson. So you have Deontay Banks and maybe a safety, bracket him, and then the other guys that they have, if they play, I mean, Is Jordan Addison going to play? I know he's been dealing with an injury. I know their number 3 guy's been dealing with an injury. You run into chance with, the cornerback too, whether it be Jackson, whether it be McLeod or Flott or whoever. So that's how I think it's going to kind of play out for the Giants and for Adoree Jackson on Sunday. All right, coming up next, we're going to take a look at the offensive side of the roster. Now, the 53-man roster looks like it's set for the week coming up. So we'll just take a look at where the strengths are, where the weaknesses are, the concerns, and how they can mitigate all that. That's coming right after this. Hey, Giant fans, you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. Hey, Giant fans, did you know the new Locked On NFL is here? Locked On NFL is now 2 shows every day. First, the Madman, Tyler Rowland, kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso. Then stop by the barbershop for a visit with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Add in the Locked On local experts and you get unprecedented NFL insight, hot opinions, detailed breakdowns, all in 30 minutes. It's the new Locked On NFL and it's twice a day. Make the new Locked On NFL your second listen on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, I have an announcement to make, and I'm so excited. I hope you guys are as well. Locked On Giants Live returns this week. Trina, Tina, Dog, we are back live. It's going to be Thursday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on the YouTube channel. And of course, the replay, if you miss any of it, will be available on the YouTube channel. We will have the audio as well on the all our audio platforms, but we are back live. If you have never taken part in Locked On Giants Live, come by and if you're not doing anything and check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. We have a nice little community going on where everybody's kind of like chatting with each other. They're chatting with us, asking us questions. So I'm really, really excited. And we're going to try and do this on a weekly basis because you guys asked for it. And look, when you guys ask me to do a particular show or a particular topic, I do my best to accommodate. So I've been wanting to do this now for the longest time. The schedule's been a little funky, but here it is. It's back, and it's going to be bigger and better than ever before. So I'm excited. Hope you are. All right. Now, in this segment, we're going to take a look at the New York Giants offense. The Giants 53-man roster, which we reviewed that last week. That was the initial 53, but since then there's been some tweaks made, some injuries that have popped up. We'll get the full injury report on Wednesday, of course, to find out where these guys stand. But I just want to kind of revisit the roster, not just, position by position, but I want to take a look at the strengths, the weaknesses, the concerns, and maybe how they might mitigate some of the concerns that they have on this roster. So let's start with the offensive side of the ball. And I'm going to just pull up the depth chart that I have here. So I would say right now, the biggest strength of this team is receiver. So the top 4 of Malik Neighbors, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt, Darius Slayton, that's a pretty good receiver core. All right. Malik Neighbors kind of just put that unit over the top. And that's actually a good thing because I believe that the Giants offense is going to go through the passing game. Brian Dable's taken over the play calling. And if you go back and you look at his history in Buffalo, he more or less leaned heavily on the receiving game, the passing game. So I think that plays into maybe what Dable is looking to do. And not just, in terms of the long pass, but just getting shorter passes into the hands of these yards after the catch specialists and let them take off. So that's in my opinion, the number one strength on the offensive side of the ball. The second strength, and this one, I wouldn't say it's as solid as the strength, but it's not a weakness like it would be in the past. I think the starting offensive line is going to be fine. Um, the starting offensive line from left to right, Andrew Thomas, John Runyon Jr., John Michael Schmitz, Greg Van Roten, and Jermaine Illuminor. I like that starting five. I think that starting five is going to be solid for this team. Where I'm concerned, obviously, is the depth behind these guys. The Giants placed Austin Schlottman on IR after Schlottman last week broke his leg. So he's going to be out for at least 6 to 8 weeks, maybe longer. And now they're in a position where if, heaven forbid, something happens to John Michael Schmitz, Greg Van Roten will probably move over and play center, which means now you've got to replace two guys on that line as opposed to just taking somebody and plugging them in. All right. I think Jake Kubas, who made the roster, can play center too, but he's still kind of wet behind the ears a little bit. So I'm not so sure they would put him in. I think Van Roten would be the guy that would go in there. So I'm still concerned about the depth there, but overall, the starting unit, if it stays healthy, I think it's gone from being an absolute weakness to somewhat of a strength. I think the running game, even though you don't have a runner of Saquon Barkley's caliber on your roster anymore, I don't hate the talent there. I think there's some intriguing talent there, and I think that unit's going to be fine. Tight end, I think they'll be okay. I want to see how they do with the blocking aspect of it. And I think, it's interesting. Jacob Johnson, the fullback tight end that they picked up before the Texans game, he's been on and off the roster. Right now, I think he's on the practice squad as I record this. Who knows? Tomorrow, he might be on the 53-man roster. But I would suspect that's a guy they're going to bring up and use the maximum of 3 elevations on him to help out with the blocking. Because, again, the depth on the Giants' offensive line, shaky, and also the tight ends, the blocking this past summer was, let's just say, it left something to be desired. So, all right. And then quarterback, you're probably thinking, okay, what do I think about the quarterback situation? Besides the fact that it is what it is. I am going to go into the season optimistic. I would think that with a better offensive line, with the receivers this unit has, or this offense has, with a decent running game, and with Dable calling the plays, I have reason to be optimistic that the quarterback position on this team will not be an issue. Now, I say that with an asterisk. It's up to Daniel Jones, the starter, all right? We can't be seeing stupid plays like what he did against the Texans. We have to see more of the good plays, like what he did maybe in the second quarter of that game, or what he did in 2022. So, what Daniel Jones are we going to get in 2024? Are we going to get, the 2022 version, who's making all the right decisions and whose timing was impeccable with his receivers? Or are we going to get last year's version, which was just a deer in the headlights and an absolute mess? That's a big question mark for me. So I'm curious to see how that plays off. Overall, it's interesting. I saw an article rating the Giants triplets, which would be the quarterback, the receiver, and the top running back. And I think they had a low rating. I don't remember the exact number, but it was pretty low. And, look, Malik Neighbors, I think, even though he hasn't played it down, the potential is there for this kid to be just explosive and dynamite. The quarterback, the fact that we're still asking what we have in the quarterback, that's a concern. But again, I think this time Daniel Jones is set up to be successful if he takes the bull by the horns and does what he needs to do and doesn't make any stupid mistakes. And you know what? Devin Singletary at running back, no, he's not Saquon Barkley, but you know what? If he's consistent in moving the chains and picking up at least, the minimum required yardage on any given down, I'm fine with that. I don't need flash at running back. I just need consistency and I need production out of that unit. All right. Now, what do I think about the defensive side of the ball? Well, I'll tell you right after this. Hey, Giant fans. Now you never have to worry about being shut out of those live events that you want to be a part of thanks to Game Time. Game Time makes finding affordable seats so easy. They have a new feature called Game Time Picks that filters out the fluff and shows you only the most incredible deals on great seats, saving you valuable time searching through thousands of tickets. With Game Time, you'll know exactly what you're paying for before you check out. You'll get clear images of your seat views, and you'll also get event cancellation protection. And if you find tickets elsewhere in the same section and row for less, Game Time will give you 110% of the difference. So go on and get the tickets that you want. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, and in this segment, we're going to take a look at the Giants defense. Again, the 53-man roster underwent some tweaks, nothing really major, but just a little tweak here and there. I think arguably you could say that the biggest tweak made to the roster as a whole was the addition of Adoree Jackson to fix what had been a very, very, very big concern, I think, for a lot of people. But little things here and there that you obviously want to, go back and look at and kind of figure out how it's going to play out. So I think overall with the defensive side of the ball, I feel a lot better about the defensive secondary if they stay healthy. Now I know they've got some young guys back there. Tyler Nubin will probably be the starting safety alongside of Jason Pinnock. I think he might have just edged out Dane Belton just by a nose. I think is what happened there. And, and then of course you got second year man, Deonte Banks, who, hopefully this year he takes a really big step forward. He had a good rookie season last year, but he'll be the first to tell you that it can always be better. And now you've got Adoree Jackson coming back. So once he's up to speed, everything should be fine there. But I'm still concerned about the depth at the cornerback position. As I said, I think in the first segment, I'm basically concerned about the depth because they're really one injury away from being back to where they were prior to Adoree Jackson's arrival. So, look, I have all the confidence in the world in Jerome Henderson, the Giants defensive backs coach. I know he'll get these guys coached up, but it's going to take time. It's not something that, they're going to wake up and all of a sudden, boom, the light switch goes off and now all of a sudden they go from being inexperienced to being, experienced and able to handle anything that gets thrown at them. So, we look at that, and if we all agree that indeed is the weakness, that's going to put a little bit more onus on the defensive front, especially when it comes to rushing the passer and obvious pass rushing downs. So here's the problem though. You can't expect the pass rush to get home on every single play. It just doesn't happen that way. Quarterbacks are going to look to get the ball out of their hand quickly, whether it be dump offs to the flat or, in the middle or in between, picking apart zones and whatnot. You might have some quarterbacks who run around and try to buy time, knowing that maybe the defensive secondary might not be able to hold their coverage that long. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how they adjust that. I don't know off the top of my head what the answer is, but certainly a lot's going to be put on the pass rush. Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns. They're gonna be like the front guys, obviously. And then, you got to feel good about having Bobby Okereke back there, who was pretty good in coverage last year. Micah McFadden, he's been dealing with an injury. I think he's going to be okay, but I don't know how much he's going to be able to do in practice. If I had to take a guess, I would say he's probably going to be limited in practice this week. And again, we won't see a practice report, or I should say an injury report. We won't see that until Wednesday, which is the first day that teams are required to file a report. Teams that are playing on Sunday, that is. So the defense, versus the offense, which unit do I feel better about? I'm going to give the nod to the defense. I think, even though I have questions about, the defensive secondary and in particular the cornerback depth, I like the front seven. I think that front seven is by far the strongest unit on the team, outside of the wide receivers. I think, wide receivers on offense, the strength, front seven on defense, the strength. And it's just a matter of, how are they going to put it all together and mask some of these deficiencies. And, I'm going to be studying some trends that the Giants do. See, it's kind of hard to, kind of anticipate stuff because you got to kind of get a feel for how they were going to play, how they address trends and whatnot. And I'm not as familiar with Shane Bowen and what he ran in Tennessee, but I'm curious to see, the differences in what he does, and how he, thinks in terms of approaching different types of opponents and what they do well. So all questions will be answered eventually, I'm sure. And hey, real football is back. It starts Sunday, and it's about time. It's about time. So let's hope for the best here. All right, that's going to do it for us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. Now, coming up tomorrow, the Giants are back on the practice field. They had a walkthrough on Monday. Tuesday, they're going to be back on the practice field. So I'll be at the Giants headquarters. We won't have a full practice report because now the media is not allowed to watch the full practice anymore, but I'll bring you everything you need to know that goes on during the course of the day. And we'll just keep on rolling right along. And don't forget Thursday, besides the fact that we have Locked On Giants Live, Thursday is the return of Crossover Thursday. So I've already taped that with Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings, and I hope you will check that out. All right, Giant fans, that does it for me. I'll see you tomorrow.